Hello, my fellow knights and warriors, and this is another part of my videos about the siege rules, and today we are going to cover combat. Combat is something that was changed just slightly, if you will compare this with Cry Havoc, but still Siege brought a couple of new elements that we have to take care about and remember, because some of these were often used in many other games of the Cry Havoc family, so it is good to know about them. First of all, when you are starting your combat step, you are free to declare all your attacks, but you have to declare all of them before they will be resolved. So again, you have to say, he is going to attack him, he is going to attack him, he is going to attack him, and then you have to resolve all your attacks. You cannot declare your attacks during the combat. So you cannot simply resolve one attack and then declare that one of your characters is going to attack someone else. No, you have to declare all your attacks before they are resolved. Next, you have to declare who is going to attack who when it comes to the numbers. For example, if you have 2 or 3 characters standing against another enemy, you have to say they are going to attack him together, or they are going to attack him separately. Next, if you are versus 2 enemy characters and you are alone, you have to say I am going to attack him, or both of them, but again you have to do it first. And now you have to compare your character's strength. You are taking your character's attack strength, a black number, and defender's red value, which is character's defense. You can see that some of them have their defense encircled. This is not used in the siege, just like in the Cry Havoc. It was introduced later, and because I am using a vassal module, and vassal module use standardized rules from all the Cry Havoc family, we have their defense encircled. This means that they wore armor, but armor rules weren't used in the siege, so you can simply ignore this red circle. And now, when you know your attack strength and defender's defense strength, you have to compare it to get your combat odds. We are going into the combat table, and we are checking if you are fighting versus mounted or versus foot opponent, and then you get your odds and you are making a roll. But before you will make a roll, you have to check for possible column shifts, because there are a couple of situations when you get a column shift. First of all, a very important thing: if you are fighting with two attackers or more versus a single defender, you get one column shift. This works only once. No matter if the number of the attackers is bigger or bigger than 2. So if they are attacking together him, they will get one column shift. If these 3 guys are attacking him, they also get one column shift. Next is the terrain. Terrain table says that terrain can have plus, 0 or minus. You have to compare the terrain that your attacker is with the terrain that defender is, and you can see that you might get a shift of 1 or 2 columns in the combat result table. For example, if the attacker is in terrain with minus and defender is on terrain with plus, you get 2 shifts left. This means they are in favor of the defender. If situation is different, attacker is in plus and defender is in minus, then you get 2 shifts on the right in favor of the attacker. So it is always important to check the terrain advantage before the combat starts. The good thing to remember is that the terrain is the same for both sides. Then this means that there is no modifiers. If your characters are on the different types of terrain, for example, your attackers are on the two types of terrain, and one of them is the same as defender, then uh, let's assume that they are in the same type of terrain. For example, here they are two in the clear terrain. He is on the tent and he is on the tent. So this means that they are on the same type of terrain. If you are fighting versus mounted character that occupies two hexes, and one of these hexes is covered with different type of terrain, this means that you are always using the most disadvantageous terrain for such character. Let's assume that he is here and he is there and he attacks him. He is on the clear terrain here and on the scrap here. Since scrap is disadvantageous terrain, let me show you. You can see it provides minus, and clear terrain is 0. So we are assuming that he is using scrap, because this is worse than clear terrain. When you know the odds and the possible shifts, you are going into the combat results table. There are two combat results tables, one for the mounted opponents and one against infantry. Remember about one important thing. If you are fighting with this 2 versus 1, it always works only if you are fighting versus same type of enemy. So, for example, we have two foot warriors versus mounted warrior. If they would attack him, they would get no shift for 2 versus 1 because they are foot warriors. But if there would be two mounted warriors fighting versus one leg warrior, they would get a column shift because of 2 versus 1. And from the other hand, if there will be two mounted warriors versus one mounted warrior, they would also get a column shift because of 2 versus 1. And when you know what kind of enemy you are attacking, and when you know your odds, you are making a d10 roll in the proper column of the proper table, finding what kind of effect your attack brought. It is good to know that attacks with the small odds like 1 to 1 and 2 to 1 are usually fruitless, or they can be even dangerous for you because they can brought a result of A, which means that your attacking character will be wounded or forced to retreat. But even so, sometimes it is good to bring this low chance attack because they can make defender step back, and since retreats are somehow limited, this might bring some good result. And now you can notice one more thing. When you are fighting against mounted opponents, this is harder because mounted opponents are usually stronger. But from the other hand, combat against mounted opponents can not only affect them personally, but also their stallions. So it is sometimes good to attack mounted opponents with couple of your attack characters, even if you get a small chance to actually damage them seriously, because it might result with forcing them to retreat or to dismount them, and retreating with a horse is a bit more complicated than the retreat with leg warrior. When it comes to the result, character can be stunned. If he is stunned, he is brought on the stunned side. This means that he's still fine, but he has his defense of 1, and if he's attacked again during the same turn, same combat step, he is only defending with the defense of 1, and if he is stunned or wounded, this means that he is dead. A character can be wounded. If such thing happens, take his counter with wounded side, and you can see that all his stats are now lowered by half, mostly. If he is wounded or stunned again, he is dead. So you can be stunned only if you are in the good health. If you are stunned or wounded, then another stun result makes you dead instantly. If, as a result of combat, mounted character is dismounted, then you have to use his riderless horse. For example, let's assume that Sir Hughes was attacked by Sir Wallace and he was dismounted. So in such a case you have to check and turn his counter into his riderless horse, and then take his foot version. Let me see, his squire Sir Hughes and foot version, and place it anywhere on the hex which is adjacent to his horse. So it would be like that. If he would be wounded or killed because of the combat, we would also have to place his wounded or stunned counter. A horse is not unarmed. Of course, some combat results might result with horse being killed and rider being stunned and dismounted. So it depends on the result of combat. Sometimes combat results table might bring retreat result. In such a case, you have to retreat some of your characters. If you are fighting with two of your characters, you have always to choose the result for one of them. So, for example, if there is a wound and you have two characters, you have to choose which one of them is wounded. And same goes to combat. If combat brings a retreat result, you have to choose which of your character is going to retreat. And retreat comes with a certain limitations. You have to retreat by one hex. Notice that there are no two hexes retreats in this game, but this means that you have to retreat through the legal hexes. So you can only retreat on the hexes that you can move on. For example, mounted warrior cannot retreat on the hexes that are covered with trees, because he cannot enter 3 hexes. And you can never retreat through the hexes that are occupied by other characters, no matter if they are friendly or enemy. You cannot displace them. For example, you cannot move your friendly character somewhere else to move your own character on this hex due to the retreat. You can only retreat on the hexes that are free and they are legal for you to enter. If such situation might not happen, then your character is wounded instead. And now one more thing that was introduced in the Siege, and it was something that I really missed in the Cry Havoc. It is advance after combat. Advance after combat allows you to move after you forced enemy to retreat or managed to kill him. So, let's assume that these two guys fought with this sergeant, and somehow he was forced to retreat. He moves 2 hexes, and now each of them is able to perform advance after combat. Advance after combat means that you can move up to the half of your original movement allowance. So, for example, he can move up to 2 movement points, and he can spend 3 movement points. And first hex you have to enter is the hex which was occupied by enemy. There is one important limitation about this rule. If you made enemy to retreat or killed him, and you are still adjacent to the enemy who wasn't attacked, then you can only move by 1 hex. So, for example, let's go back, and let's say that they forced him to retreat 1 hex. Now he can move up to 2 movement points as he likes, and now him, since he's adjacent to this sergeant, he can only move 1 hex and no more due to his advance after combat. Remember that spending these movement points during advance after combat do not count for the total number of your movement points during your next movement phase. You will be able to move normally. These movement points here are spent only during advance after combat step. Of course, if a character wasn't involved in combat, he cannot perform advance after combat, even if he was adjacent to the character that was forced to retreat or killed.